What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Benji.
I'm Michelle.
And today we're going to be baking some banana bread.
This is such an easy recipe, you just can't get it wrong. We love it so much, we've made it maybe 10 times in the last 4 months.
At least.
The original recipe came from Anna Olson.
We'll put a link to that video in the description below. We just made some changes to it to better suit our taste.
So without further ado, let's jump straight to it.
Here are the ingredients we're going to need. Some all-purpose flour, butter, which we're going to melt, brown sugar, a tiny bit of salt, 3 or 4 large overripe bananas, baking soda to give it a bit of rise, walnuts and raisins to jazz it up a bit, and finally, 1 large egg. The first thing we have to do is to peel and mash up our bananas. What we want is to end up with 1 3/4 cups of banana mush, so you may find that you need to adjust the number of bananas you use to get that amount at the end. Now, if your bananas aren't ripe enough, never fear. You can put your bananas into an oven at 200 degrees C for about 10 minutes to ripen them, and then you're good to go. Now put the banana mush into a mixing bowl along with the melted butter, some brown sugar, and the egg. And make sure they're all mixed well together. And now mix the flour, salt, baking soda, and optionally add in a teaspoon of cinnamon to give it a bit of kick. Sieve the dry ingredients into another bowl. And then mix them all up with a whisk. Clean up the mess you've inevitably left behind, and then mix the dry ingredients into the wet. Using a spatula, mix it all up well and good. Make sure all the dry ingredients are incorporated into the wet. You don't want any dry bits left behind. And now to jazz it up a little bit. The raisins are going to add a little bit of sweetness to the mix, and chopped walnuts will balance that out really nicely with a bit of crunch. But you don't have to stick with these. Feel free to change these up as you like. Chocolate chips, pecans, almonds, go nuts. Now it's time to put it all into your loaf tin. We're using a 9 by 5 inch tin here, and we've lined it with some parchment paper to make it easier to pull the loaf out later. Once you've got the mix in there, use a spatula to even out your mix in the loaf tin. And now to make it look Instagram worthy, cut a banana in half with a knife or your ninja skills, remove the skin, and then lay each half on top of your loaf. Finally, sprinkle some sugar over the banana halves to give it some nice caramelization. Chuck it into the oven at 160 degrees C for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. If you poke a skewer into the loaf and it comes out clean, then you know that it's done. Let it rest for 20 minutes before pulling the loaf out. Then eat a slice and do a little dance.
It was easy? Make sure you try it out.
It's such a flexible recipe, feel free to play around with the ingredients.
For example, today we used just brown sugar that has more of a molasses taste, but the original called for a mix of white and brown sugar, and that subtly changes how it tastes.
You can also try different types of bananas. For example, here in Malaysia, we have loads of different banana varieties. And depending on which you use, it'll change the taste of the loaf.
If you come across a good combination of ingredients that work for you, do tell us about it in the comments below.
If you had watched our last video, you'll notice we now have whisks. In fact, we have 2 and a new apron. So we just want to thank our friends for sending us these.
Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it.
Please give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!
This is such an easy recipe that